For hundreds of thousands of years, the known galaxy was governed by the Galactic Concord. This was a council of 12 ancient civilizations that measured the worth of a species purely by its age. They had watched younger races rise and fall like ocean tides, and they had grown comfortably in their belief that they had seen everything the universe had to offer. When the Concord's observation bureaus first detected Earth, they cataloged it as a Class 7 pre-emergence world. To the elder races, humanity was chaotic, short-lived, and fragile. We were still fighting over patches of dirt, completely trapped in our own atmosphere. By every metric the Concord used, we were a species entirely beneath their notice. You can see the source of their confusion when we look at this chart tracking technological progression over time. The elder races spent millions of years slowly climbing the ladder of development, represented by this flat horizontal baseline. But humanity's trajectory is a violently steep climb. In a century and a half, we went from riding animals to splitting the atom. The Concord had rigid legal protocols for handling young, volatile species that didn't fit their timeline. Following a single brief meeting, the High Commander delivered a 6-word judgment on humanity. Non-entity. No contact, no protection. Earth was quietly erased from the active observation list. Relying strictly on age to measure the value of a civilization created a massive blind spot for the elder races. They assumed that because we lacked a million-year history, we also lacked capability. That arrogance left them completely unprepared for how quickly a rapidly adapting anomaly like humanity. That blind spot had catastrophic consequences when humanity settled a small, unclaimed world called Nova Catalina. The Valroni hegemony, one of the Concord's great powers, wanted the territory. They didn't negotiate. They dispatched a suppression fleet on a Tuesday morning, bombarding the surface, turning the river to steam, and stripping the planet of life in hours. There were no survivors. 2.3 million human lives were eradicated in a single day. The Valroni fleet commander officially logged the genocide as routine pest management. Humanity didn't immediately launch a counterattack. We didn't scatter in a panic. Instead, we gathered the evidence of our murdered colony and sent a desperate transmission to the Galactic Concord. We asked the 12 most powerful civilizations in the universe for justice and protection. The Concord held an emergency session to review the legal status of humanity. The vote was 11-1 against intervention. The official ruling established a chilling legal precedent, stating simply that one cannot commit a crime against an insect. This ruling signaled the end of humanity's attempt at diplomacy. The elder races had codified their indifference into law, confirming that our survival depended entirely on our ability to dismantle their order. Humanity's response to the vote was absolute radio silence. Every human settlement on the galactic fringe went entirely dark. Ships, equipment, and people were cleanly removed from the map, leaving behind empty buildings and dead air. The Concord Intelligence Services conducted a brief investigation and filed a single-line conclusion. They assumed the human species had suffered a post-traumatic collapse and projected our total extinction within 3 generations. The file was closed. For the elder races, 150 years is a brief nap. They didn't notice the time passing. But for humanity, 150 years is 6 generations. That is enough time to grow, build, and prepare with the kind of desperate energy that immortal beings can't comprehend. A century and a half later, a Dravosi probe drifted into dead space and sent back this map. Humanity had quietly established 912 colonies, linked by invisible, faster-than-light highways built right under the Concord's nose. The elder empires assumed small things stayed small. Humanity weaponized that exact assumption. We used their arrogance as a shield, building an unstoppable war machine in the shadows while the galaxy looked the other way. The silence finally broke when every communication relay across the Concord activated simultaneously. A single human voice broadcast a message in perfect, formal Valroni. She told them humanity remembered the children they had burned and promised that the galaxy would now remember us. The Valroni hegemony fell in 11 days. the human fleets bypassed civilian populations to strike exclusively at military command centers and weapons factories. These surgical strikes left the hegemony's military structure in ruins while leaving the rest of their world intact. While the Velroni military crumbled, humanity dismantled their economy of forced labor. They liberated 14 enslaved vassal species and provided them with medicine, supplies, and the tools to establish their own sovereignty. Watching this, the Krithvari Dominion mobilized. They massed a fleet of 40,000 warships, the largest concentration of military force in galactic history, to create a wall of steel capable of cracking planets in half. Humanity sent just 6,000 ships to meet them. On this tactical grid, you can see how the human fleet flowed around the massive enemy formations. Guided by artificial intelligence networks, human ships calculated firing solutions before the Krithvari gunners could even aim. The greatest military power in history was disabled in exactly 9 hours. The Ulari Collective chose a different tactic. As a society built on biological science, they engineered a lethal, highly contagious bioweapon specifically tailored to target human DNA, launching it secretly along commercial trade routes. Humanity's AI intercepted every single vial before it reached a colony. We traced the virus back to its source, decoded the data, and broadcast the Ulari secret archives to every world in the galaxy. We revealed undeniable proof of 22 separate genocides the collective had carried out in the name of science. The Ulari Empire immediately fractured from within. In less than a month, humanity neutralized 3 civilizations that had ruled for millions of years. By targeting military hubs, slave-holding structures, and scientific archives, they dismantled the foundational pillars of galactic power: control, supremacy, and prestige. With the Elder Empires broken, the human fleet arrived slowly at the Concord capital system. They broadcast their approach on every channel. They didn't hide, they didn't rush, and they didn't fire a single weapon. A single human ambassador walked into the Grand Chamber, the exact room where humanity's plea had been laughed away a century and a half prior. She stepped up to the High Council's massive table and placed a plain white box directly in the center. She opened the box to reveal a small, fragile white skull. It belonged to a child, recovered from the ashes of Nova Catalina. The ambassador looked at the gathered representatives of the galaxy and delivered a single demand. We are alive. Acknowledge it. The physical reality of that skull paralyzed the elder races more effectively than any tactical strike. They understood destruction, but they had never been forced to confront the actual, tangible evidence of their own indifference. This presentation forced the elder races to look past their protocols and confront the reality of their choices. They had to carry the weight of those 2.3 million lives, no longer as a statistic, but as individuals whose futures they had knowingly discarded. In the years that followed, the galaxy was restructured from the ground up. The oppressive empires were dissolved, their militaries disbanded, and the species they had enslaved were granted equal seats and real voting power on the newly formed council. The elder races waited for humanity to claim the high seat and declare themselves the new masters of the universe, but humanity refused the throne. We told the council, we didn't fight for 150 years just to make the same mistakes our oppressors had. Instead, humanity vanished back into the dark between stars. We chose to act as silent wardens, patrolling the borders of civilized space, answering distress calls, and standing between the strong and the weak. We asked for no tribute, no loyalty, and no worship. Humanity's presence in the void serves as a permanent check on the cycle of conquest. They maintain the strength to dismantle empires, using it only to ensure that the galaxy's oldest mistake, deciding that some lives do not matter, is never repeated.